Get ready, Tobago. The People's House will reconvene for the 35th sitting of the 2021 to 2025 session of your Tobago House of Assembly. And this time, we're talking finance. Now, the central government allocated $2.6 billion to Tobago for the next fiscal year. This represents 4.3% of the government's total spend, a glaring deficit of 5.8% requested by the Tobago House of Assembly to effectively meet the island's operational and developmental needs. Consequently, the executive, technical, and administrative heads of the THA underwent a budget reprioritization exercise to treat with the shortfall. The Finance Secretary, Petalan Roberts, will lay a motion seeking support for these measures. Thursday, November 28th, from 10 a.m., discussions will reignite. As usual, you can either tune in or come in. Either way, don't miss it. Get ready, Tobago. The People's House will reconvene for the 35th sitting of the 2021 to 2025 session of your Tobago House of Assembly. And this time, we're talking finance. Now, the central government allocated $2.6 billion to Tobago for the next fiscal year. This represents 4.3% of the government's total spend, a glaring deficit of 5.8% requested by the Tobago House of Assembly to effectively meet the island's operational and developmental needs. Consequently, the executive, technical, and administrative heads of the THA underwent a budget reprioritization exercise to treat with the shortfall. The Finance Secretary, Petalan Roberts, will lay a motion seeking support for these measures. Thursday, November 28th, from 10 a.m., discussions will reignite. As usual, you can either tune in or come in. Either way, don't miss it.
Let us now pray. O Almighty God, as we have come together to begin our meeting of the Assembly, we humbly beseech you to grant us all our members the light and guidance of your Holy Spirit, that we may wisely take counsel together and come to such decisions as shall promote your glory and the well-being of all our citizens in our land, so that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be enjoyed by all people. Grant this for the sake of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Please be seated.
Of a new member. Announcements by the presiding officer.
Honorable members, I received leave of absence from today's sitting from Assemblyman Joel Sampson. The leave is granted.
Assembly bills sent back from Cabinet. Assembly laws brought back from Parliament. Petitions, papers.
Secretary for Finance and Trade and the Economy.
Deputy Presiding Officer, I stand to lay the monthly report at the end of September 2022. Well, it says 2022. Okay. No, I didn't have any.
Presentation of reports from 1. Dispute Resolution Commission. 2. Select committees. Chief Secretary's questions. Questions to secretaries. Questions for oral answer.
Minority Councillor Petal Daniel Benoit.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Deputy Presiding Officer, my question number 251 to the Secretary of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment and Sustainable Development. Assemblyman Charles Panton, I'm not seeing Assemblyman.
Leader of Assembly Business, could you tell me as to the whereabouts of Secretary for Food Security?
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Secretary of Food Security is on her way. She was not feeling well this morning and just submitted that to me as leader. She should be here momentarily.
Okay, we'll defer the question until a later time.
Yes, please.
Minority Councillor again, Petal.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. We move to question number 252 to the Secretary of Finance, Trade and Economy, Councillor Mrs. Petalan Roberts.
With the outstanding compensation for fishermen or persons affected by the oil spill. And the question asks, how did the THA assess the liability to the fishermen? And I'd like to lay on record that the Executive Council established a Tobago Oil Spill Relief Committee under the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment and Sustainable Development tasked with the responsibility for assessing and evaluating the extent of the damage to the fishermen's livelihood caused by the oil spill, to determine the fair and transparent relief packages for the affected stakeholders based on an established criteria. I would also like to state that the committee had the responsibility to ensure that the compensation efforts align with the guiding principles of the THA, to facilitate the recovery and restoration of the fishing industry, and to reach out to the subject matter experts from the IOPC, that is, for technical assistance. The committee's process for fulfilling its mandate required developing a strategy that could capture the nuances of the island of Tobago, and it also served to guide for future incidents like oil spills. A central principle involved conducting a damage assessment and a needs analysis, which facilitated the framework for assessing claims through a comparative analysis of data emanating from the oil spill committee meetings. They had dialogues with experts, they consulted with the fisher folk, and TEMA did have relevant documents submitted by the fisher folk. The first step of assessing the fishers' liabilities, they created a claim form, and they did this to understand what the claims that were submitted to the committee. And what they did, they explored the IOPC funds standardized forms. So they created a form in line with what the International Oil Pollution Claims form looked like, focusing on the category of fishing and mariculture. However, the Tobago Oil Spill Relief Committee, they adjusted certain aspects to capture the nuances of the Tobago context. In these adjustments vis-a-vis the IOPC fund's original claim form was easily realigned just in case individuals decided to submit the claim forms directly to the IOPC. Following the relevant data, the Tobago Oil Spill Relief Committee assessed the submitted claims using an economic model created by the committee. The procedure involved evaluating the claims registered by the fisherfolk, whose applications contain all the relevant documents, which are the valid fisherman's ID, their national ID, their vendor's badge, their food badge, their boat certificate and registration where applicable, and devising a computation considering 4 different scenarios. That is, compensation either 100%, 75%, 50%, or 40%. Generally, the assessment process comprised of several aspects. First, the committee perused the listing of all the fisherfolk who provided data to the Division of Food Security concerning the operations in the Lambo and Scarborough landing sites. The sample size was subsequently increased to include areas from around Studley Park to Buku in order to provide a more reliable and representative approximation of the fishers' information. The committee then examined each claim and engaged in the following. They calculated the claims for each fisherfolk based on the average daily in terms of their catch, pounds and kilograms, the average distance that are traveled by the fishers, ice, gas, and oil usage per trip, the size of their vessels, the time taken, and the frequency of fishing, and any other pertinent information that the data collectors did collect. Then they looked at the estimate figures from the claimants. After that, they assessed the completed applications filed by the claimants whose landing base was not in Lambo or Scarborough using the above guidelines, which are the average daily catch, the average distance traveled, the ice, oil, and gas used, the size of the vehicle, the vessels, etc. Then they calculated the averages for fishers as an approximation of quantifying the vendor's claims because of the intricate linkages between the fishers and the vendor's operations. They considered all the descriptive reports from the fishermen and vendors that were submitted to TEMA, to the fishing associations, because of the oil spill. The committee also conducted field visits to verify the equipment damaged, confirm whether certain details of the applications were correct, and the IOPC funds personnel accompanied the committee on the site visits from the affected fishermen. The second question asks, what system was put in place to settle these outstanding claims? And I'd like to say that the THA, through the Secretary of Finance, submitted at the time in June last year, the mid-year review requested $153.5 million to cater for the oil spill-related expenditure. And this included the cleanup efforts, as well as compensation, any legal costs, any monitoring and assessment costs, public relations and communications, and any consultancy. The total request to the Ministry of Finance at the mid-year was $153.5. The Tobago House of Assembly only received $50 million, and that was used to partially take care of the cleanup costs. So the THA received no additional funds to take care of compensation. As I did indicate, the THA established a Tobago Oil Spill Relief Committee, and I wish to inform this Honorable House that I received a technical report from this committee dated the 31st of October 2024, and I reviewed the recommendations both by the committee as well as the claims manager from the IOPC, which is the international expert. And those recommendations are being considered at this time. I wish to quote some of the recommendations contained in the report. One, that the THA should honor claims from the Lambo and Scarborough area, and that 3 individuals outside of the mandated areas using the IOPC funds formula of 100% reimbursement for valid requests. And in addition to that, they did indicate that the THA should collaborate with the Ministry of Energy and the IOPC personnel to conduct a post-evaluation regarding all the aspects of what is contained in the Tobago Oil Spill Committee's report. I would also like to read on record a letter that was received from the IOPC claims manager, and this is what he said at paragraph 4. and this was addressed to the Honorable Chief Secretary. The subject of the correspondence is the Gulf Stream incident, payment of compensation to fishers. He said, whilst we are aware of and grateful for the work conducted to date by the Tobago Oil Spill Relief Committee, we strongly advise that the THA chooses to compensate those claimants who have submitted claims to the Tobago Oil Spill Relief Committee with little or no evidence in support of these claims and whose claims do not comply with the criteria contained within the 1992 Funds Claim Manual. We cannot guarantee that the THA would be compensated by the IOPC funds if it submitted its claims through the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries subsequently. Upon our preliminary investigations of the claims submitted to the Tobago Oil Spill Relief Committee, and I'd like to say that this committee received 167 claims totaling $47 million. Specifically, this is what the claims manager has noted. Very few claims contain supporting documentation to evidence the claims submitted. Some of the claimants were involved in paid cleanup work during the oil spill cleanup operations. There was no fishing ban in place following the oil spill incident, and many of the claimants received a sum of $1,000 by way of compensation during the early stages of the oil spill. All of these factors, along with others, indicate that many of the claims have no substantiation for figures being discussed by the Tobago Oil Spills Committee as possible compensation payments. Accordingly, we strongly advise that the THA not pay the claims as currently submitted, but to encourage the fishers to submit their claims to the IOPC's focal point office in Trinidad, thereby permitting the claims to be assessed in accordance with the established criteria contained within the internationally agreed 1992 Funds Claim Manual, details of which are available on the IOPC Funds website. If the THA, however, does wish to make claims and payments to the fishers independently of their claims being assessed by the IOPC, we cannot guarantee that the THA will receive their sums back if or once it submits its claims through the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries and ultimately to the IOPC funds, signed by the claims manager of the IOPC. You did also ask for a timeline by which the THA will settle the balance. I'd like to read into the record that we paid no compensation, so there is no balance to be paid. Of the $50 million that we received from the Tobago House of Assembly, the cleanup efforts cost, yes, the 50 from the Ministry of Finance. That $50 million was used to clean up, and the cleanup cost was about $70 million, and at the time, the claims were not assessed by the THA. As I did indicate, the report was only received on the 31st of October. The THA contingencies fund, I must add, was totally utilized to pay the $15 million upfront to clean up the coastline of Tobago. Yes, sir?
I am hearing you, and I'm sure she's hearing you. Please allow her to answer the question. Councillor.
Officer. And further, the allocation from which we pay these extraordinary expenditure to the THA was only allocated $2.1 million. I must say that after the assessment by the Tobago Oil Spill Relief Committee, the committee did assess and came up with about $4.7 million in claims. I am still in conversations with the IOPC Funds Claim Manager as well as the Oil Spill Committee to determine what will be the final decision in terms of compensation to the fishers. I did read into the record what the international experts did recommend, and those will be considered. Thank you very much.
Minority Councillor Petal, you could refer to question 251 because the Secretary for Food.
Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer.
Officer, we wish to recommend that since the member was late, we proceed and that question be dealt with last, because we're not going to go back.
Oh, okay, well, in that so
253?
251, I will not go with your recommendation. We'll defer back to question 251.
Say that again, please, Deputy.
Minority Councillor, please go back to question 251. The Secretary for Food Security is now here.
Question 251 to the Secretary of Food Production, Natural Resources, the Environment, and Sustainable Development.
Good morning, Deputy Presiding Officer. Good morning to the House. Given the recent reports of stolen boat engines and boats from various fishing facilities in Tobago, under the responsibility of the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment, and Sustainable Development, can the Secretary provide the following? A, whether a report was submitted by the security firm in relation to the incident? If yes, what were the findings of the report? Answer to question A, yes. A report dated the 19th of August, 2024 was submitted to the Department of Marine Resources and Fisheries by the security firm. The report indicates that on Sunday, the 18th of August, 2024, Divisional Supervisor Dane Kerr was informed by Security Officer Isaiah Alexander, who was on duty at the Call and Fish facility, that fishermen at the location reported the theft of 2 boat engines. The fishermen indicated that they intended to lodge a formal complaint with the Shirvan Road Police Station. The following details were provided by the fishermen. Mr. Darren Douglas reported that he left his boat, TFT 1555, moored at the waterfront on Saturday, 17th of August, 2024. Upon his return on Sunday, the 18th of August, 2024, he discovered that his Yamaha 75 engine, which was valued at $46,000 at the time of purchase, had been stolen. Mr. Elvis Bob reported a similar incident. He stated that he left his boat, TFT 1969, at the waterfront on Saturday, the 17th of August, 2024. When he returned the following morning, he found that his Yamaha 75 engine, also valued at $46,000 at the time of purchase, was missing. Both individuals proceeded to file a report at the Shirvan Road Police Station. B, if there were any adjustments to the billing invoice of the security firm for the period of loss. The answer to that, there was no adjustment to the billing invoice of the security firm for the period of loss. C, was there any consideration given to compensating the affected fishermen for their stolen boat engines and equipment? In a correspondence to the Department of Marine Resources and Fisheries, dated the 10th of October 2024, SWAT Estate Police Company Limited indicated that it replaced the boat engines of Mr. Darren Douglas and Mr. Elvis Bob on the 4th of October 2024. Also present at the handing over event was the president of the All Tobago Fisherfolk Association, Mr. Curtis Douglas.
Question, Minority Councillor Patel Daniel Benoit.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Question 253 to the Secretary of Settlements, Public Utilities and Rural Development, Assemblyman Ian Pollard.
Deputy Presiding Officer, answer. The question is, can the Secretary indicate the name of the company currently contracted to provide janitorial and maintenance service to all buildings occupied by the Division of Settlements, Public Utilities and Rural Development, including the total cost of this contract and the specific procurement method used to secure these services? The answer to the first part, Sparkling Clean Construction and General Services Limited is currently awarded a procurement contract for this provision of janitorial service for a period of 2 years. The total cost of the contract, $27,760 per month. The specific procurement method used to secure these services is the procurement method employed was limited competitive bidding, whereby 11 Tobago-based contractors were invited. Of these, 5 contractors submitted bids, which were rigorously evaluated in accordance with the predetermined criteria outlined in the solicitation document. Following this process, Sparkling Clean Construction and General Services Limited emerged as the awardee, having submitted the lowest price bid that was technically compliant to Section 4 of the solicitation document.
Follow. Deputy, follow up to the member. Can the secretary indicate who was the previous supplier and what was the reason for terminating the previous contract?
From my knowledge, the previous supplier of janitorial service was built into the contract, just as it is in the health division, where the landlord provided the contractual services of cleaning the buildings.
The second part of the question was not the answer, Deputy. Why was the contract terminated?
It's quite interesting that you asked that question, because when that decision was made, and it still has to be investigated, I, as secretary, have not signed off on that contract as yet. So we have to ask ourselves how this was done.
Clarity, Deputy Presiding Officer, please.
Member for Morea Mason, the question was why was the contract terminated? No contract was ever signed.
Every contract going through the division has to be signed off by the sitting secretary. A contract was awarded, but I have not seen that contract. So a lot has to be asked of the process of how that company was selected.
So basically, member, you're saying that there wasn't a contract signed?
Yeah, there was.
So nothing was
There was a
terminated?
contract signed probably by the administrator, but not signed off by the secretary.
Deputy Presiding Officer, clarity, please.
Member for Morea Mason.
I need to confirm you're asking.
Minority Councillor?
Oh, sorry.
Second. Member for Morea Mason, the question was asked, why was the contract terminated? No answer to that question was given.
Like I said, the arrangement that we made when we decided to move from Crown Point was that the landlord would provide contractual service for janitorial services. It was changed through procurement measures. What I'm saying, the actual contract have not been seen or signed by this secretary. As I may say, as not only that alone, a lot of lands that were given out have not been signed or signed off by this sitting secretary, which will be investigated.
Minority Councillor Patel. Yeah. All right. Minority Leader, Assemblyman Kilmer Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. Question number 254 to the Secretary of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, Assemblyman Dr. Faith B. Israel.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. This question relates to the oil that is stored at the Study Park landfill. The first question refers to whether the EMA clearance was provided prior to the storage of the oil at the landfill. Deputy Presiding Officer, given the nature of the oil spill being an emergency, this isn't a normal project where clearance is given ahead of a normal project being executed. If the question is whether the EMA has been a part of the process, the EMA was a part of all of the processes that were involved in the operation pertaining to the cleanup, which included the storage at the landfill. There were meetings continually during that time, and the EMA was represented at those meetings, so there is no specific date where a specific clearance is given. B, what specific containment measures were implemented to prevent leakage? The cells are lined with polyurethane, which is a type of plastic material, and there are berms on the outskirts of each cell, and berms are basically, if you notice, the rising of dirt on the outskirts to prevent spillage if probably rain falls or something like that. And have any laboratory tests been conducted to detect potential leaks? So if we're talking about laboratory tests, for example, that go to Kariri and so forth, that has not been done. However, we have been conducting environmental testing, which includes monitoring the nearby streams, south of the landfill, the nearby coastal area, and so forth. The last tests that were done were on the 6th of November 2024 and the 19th of November 2024, and all results were of acceptable levels. Acceptable levels. Thank you.
First follow-up is whether the Secretary is discounting the input of the experts who suggest that there is in fact leakage and it is in fact deleterious to the well-being of Tobagonians, including posing serious threat to the Hillsborough Dam.
Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, so I am glad that this question was raised, and I am trying to figure out if the minority leader knows where the Hillsborough Dam is compared to where the landfill is. And I am wondering by what mechanism could that movement happen. But if there is a specific report that speaks to this leakage, I have not seen such a report. And if the minority leader has a copy of such a report from the experts, I would be very willing to look at it, and we will treat with that report. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer.
Would the Secretary not agree such an important matter as this, that puts the life of the average Tobagonian at risk, that you, a responsible Secretary, would ensure that they get the necessary testing from a reputable organization such as Kariri?
Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, the department with responsibility for environment continues to do water safety testing throughout the island. This is not the first time that they're doing it. So this is just a continuation of what they have been doing. Of course, paying particular attention to that area because we know that the oil is stored there. But Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, the process for treating with that oil, as we discussed in a press conference a couple of weeks ago, the decisions that are being made as it relates to that are decisions not just being made by the Tobago House of Assembly. This includes working very closely with the Ministry of Energy and so forth. It includes having an external contractor be identified to treat with the waste oil and so forth. So I do not know that unless the member is indicating that the professionals that, for example, are in the Ministry of Energy and the professionals who are in the Department of Environment and the professionals who are part of TEMA and the professionals who work at the landfill are not reputable. I am not sure that I can agree with that statement at all, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer.
With reference to the process of engagement of EMA, is the Secretary aware that it's unlawful to undertake such a process without the necessary certified clearance?
Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, allow me to read from a memo that speaks to the pits pertaining to the pits that were dug at Study Park landfill as relates to the oil. It includes information about the pits and so forth, but it also includes a time log, which speaks to the fact that on, for example, the 23rd of February 2024, the representative from EMA was the one who presented the information about the pits being dug and about the measures that have been put in place pertaining to the pits being dug. Are you saying that the representative from the EMA who has been part of these proceedings is not being lawful? Is that what you're saying, Madam, Mr. Minority Leader?
I'm not the one answering the questions. The point is the law is the law. And is the Secretary aware that she's breaking the law?
Are you finished?
The question is,
I am not aware that any law is being broken. Unless the EMA is the one breaking the law, I am not aware that any law is being broken at this time.
Minority Leader, Assemblyman Kelvin Morris.
question number 255 to the Secretary of Education, Research and Technology, Assemblyman Ms. Zorisha Hackett.
As it relates to the announcement of the launch of the Tobago-centric curriculum, can Secretary provide specific dates, venues, and details of public consultations held, past tense, to gather input from a broad cross-section of Tobagonians in the development of the Tobago-centric curriculum? Deputy Presiding Officer, this administration, recognizing the transformative power of education, entrusted the Division of Education, Research and Technology and my leadership with the mandate to reshape Tobago's curriculum. This aligns with the Tobago House of Assembly's responsibility for education, including curriculum, under Act 40 of 1996. Unlike the previous administration, which neglected to push the boundaries or prioritize these critical areas, we have embraced this task with unmatched commitment, passion, and drive. For too long, the potential to integrate Tobago's unique cultural, historical, and political identity into the education system was overlooked. This administration has seized the opportunity to correct that omission by embarking on the bold and ambitious Tobago-centric curriculum, a transformative initiative that reflects our determination to honor Tobago's heritage while equipping students with a strong sense of identity and purpose. To deliver this vision, in phase 1, we engaged 15 Tobagonians recommended by the general public to form the Tobago-centric curriculum committee. These individuals bring expertise in key areas such as history, politics, civics, food security, linguistics, tourism, geography, ecology, music, culture, the arts, financial literacy, entrepreneurship, sustainable development, health, wellness, innovation, technology, life skills, and TVET. They have poured their knowledge and dedication into reviewing the curriculum and consulted with the wider community. Where possible, they have also incorporated authentic Tobagonian experiences, including images, music, dance, and local processes into the existing curriculum standards and syllabi. This was phase 1. The next phase, which will begin in the first quarter of 2025, will focus on stakeholder engagement, and I guess that's what the minority leader is asking about now. It will also include data collection and teacher training. We will host 3 town hall meetings, again, in the first quarter of 2025 as a part of the strategic rollout, one in the east of Tobago, one on the north side of Tobago, and one in Tobago West, to facilitate public feedback and discussions with Tobagonians from all walks of life. Concurrently, our newly established research department will gather and analyze real-time data through surveys accessible via the division's website. This effort will be undertaken in collaboration with the Tobago Information Technologies Limited. Following this, and this will be phase 3, teachers will be trained to effectively deliver this curriculum, while authentic Tobagonian content will be collected, reviewed, and prepared for integration into our schools and our libraries. As this initiative progresses, the first committee, the one I spoke to earlier, will transition into a larger interdisciplinary committee comprising of staff from all of the divisions of the Tobago House of Assembly. This ensures a truly collaborative and unified approach to transforming Tobago's education system. The public, including you, Minority Leader, will be kept informed of all activities, dates, and arrangements, because we believe that the education of Tobago's children truly requires unity and not division. While previous administrations neglected this vital aspect of Tobago's development, this administration is not deterred by the challenges of limited funding or resource constraints. We remain steadfast in our commitment to deliver high-quality work at every stage, ensuring efficiency, sustainability, and most importantly, the empowerment of our teachers and students. Through this transformative effort, Deputy Presiding Officer, we are not just developing a curriculum, but shaping a future that honors and celebrates the greatest little island on the planet. I thank you.
Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, so with respect to phase 1, my simple question would be where, when, how many? Because the member spoke about this consultation that took place after selecting 15 people. So who did they speak to? Where did they speak to them? And when did they speak to them? Because you said that they spoke to, the 15 persons spoke to persons, to stakeholders in the first phase. So I want to know who they spoke to, where they spoke to them, and when they spoke to them.
Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, that committee, headed by the technical advisor of the division and the curriculum coordinator, had interviews for each of the individual areas with persons in the specific fields. I am not privy to the day, the time, the venue of that consultation, but what I assume the minority leader was asking is about the public consultations, which will take place in phase 2. Wasn't that what you were asking about? Public consultation? Public consultation will take place in phase 2. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer.
So, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, so we are developing this Tobago-centric curriculum, and we are told of a first phase that would create the curriculum, the proposed draft curriculum. And what I'm hearing is the secretary telling me that in drafting the curriculum, Tobagonians, the layman, the average Tobagonian, have not yet been consulted?
Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I never said that they drafted the curriculum. I said that the committee sat to build out the framework of. So you build out a framework, you consult, and then you draft. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer.
So building out this framework, who are they speaking to? Come.
Member for Scarborough Mount Grace, that is the third follow-up of phase 3. Please be guided. Member for Darrell Springwood.
No decorum. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, all I want to know is, because if you're building a house and you put up, you must talk to the people who you're building the house for. And all I want to know is, if you're creating a framework, have you spoken to the people of Tobago?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. The curriculum committee members are the people of Tobago. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, the division did not develop this curriculum committee from internal members of the division. We deliberately went out into the Tobago space and members of the diaspora to build out the committee because they are actually members of the island of Tobago who are experts in the field coming with that knowledge to draft this thing. So you are asking if we consulted with people, but the people we have brought in are the actual people living, breathing the thing that will come to the table as experts in their individual fields, so we can then build that framework to then go to the wider public. Had we sat with actual internal members of the division, then we would have had to go out and get that public consultation that I think you are quoting on, what I'm speaking to as to the phase 2. But because we've done it in this untraditional way, where we ask members of the public, recommend who is the best person you think that can speak to linguistics, and several names came up, and then the public again came in and zeroed in, right? Who in history, politics, food security, a public selection process. The division didn't sit down and do it internally. We spent about 2 months fine-tuning the experts in Tobago, resident in Tobago and abroad, as Tobagonians, to sit and build this framework out. So I do not understand the genesis of your question, Mr. Minority Leader.
Secretary, we only have 3 more minutes of questions.
I am
so
finished. Deputy Presiding Officer.
Don't shoot the messenger asking for the people.
Member for Darrell Springwim, I'm on the floor. I think what the minority leader is asking is for the names of those persons. So if you could just,
15 persons?
if you could just furnish him with those names in writing, that would be good.
In writing.
Yeah, could you furnish him now?
One second, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Mr. Deputy,
Deputy.
we're good enough.
You're good?
Yeah.
I will. Member for Bethesda Lesotho.
Yes.
It's no longer necessary. The minority leader says it's okay.
Wow. That is with teacher?
Member for member for Darrell Springwim. Member for Bethesda Lesotho. The issue is settled. No crosstalk, please. Thank you very much. Let's go. Clerk of the House.
Request for leave to move the adjournment of the Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statements by secretaries or assistant secretaries. Personal explanations. Introduction of bills. Motions relating to the business or sittings of the Assembly and moved by a secretary or assistant secretary. Public business. Motion.
Councillor Petella and Robert, Secretary of Finance, Trade and the Economy.
Good morning again, Deputy Presiding Officer and members of this Honorable House, those in the visiting gallery, those listening in, tune in to this sitting, I say good morning. I'd like to also read into the record the motion today. Whereas the Tobago House of Assembly met its legal obligation in accordance with Section 41 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act 40 of 1996, of approving and submitting draft estimates of revenue and expenditure, its budget, for fiscal 2025 to the Cabinet before June 30th, 2024. And whereas the allocation to the Tobago House of Assembly emanating from the national budget for 2025 is $2.608 billion, or 66% of the request of the THA for fiscal 2025, thereby restricting the fiscal space of the THA. And whereas the central government disappointingly continues to allocate approximately 4.3% of the national budget to the THA, which is at the lower end of the Dispute Resolution Commission recommendation of 4.03 to 6.9%, and which is exceptionally insufficient to fund the proposed programs, projects, and activities of the THA for fiscal 2025, and which were designed to stimulate Tobago's socio-economic transformation. And whereas the island's socio-economic development is further hampered by the continuing practice of the Ministry of Finance to unilaterally withhold funds allocated to the THA by Parliament, and often sending such funds outside of the arrangement as prescribed in the Act 40 of 1996. And whereas the House in September 2024 unanimously approved a motion by the Honorable Chief Secretary for the Minister of Finance to allocate to the THA no less than 5.8% of the national budget to meet Tobago's urgent development priorities and address historical underfunding to the THA. And whereas the executive, technical, and administrative heads of the THA consequently met and engaged in robust budget reprioritization exercises. Be it resolved that this House accepts the policy measures and associated programs and projects emanating from the budget reprioritization exercises, which were engineered to advance the socio-economic development of Tobago, notwithstanding prevailing fiscal constraints facing the THA in fiscal 2025. And be it further resolved that this House calls on the Minister of Finance to allocate funds to the Tobago House of Assembly in keeping with approved parliamentary appropriations and consistent with the prescriptions of the THA Act 40 of 1996. Deputy Presiding Officer, before I move the motion, I seek leave at Standing Order 42.6 to read extracts of my presentation, please.
Councillor, the leave is granted.
Deputy Presiding Officer, I stand proudly as Secretary of Finance, Trade and the Economy to present the reprioritized budget of this administration for fiscal 2025. I stand on the shoulders of the Honorable Chief Secretary, who ably led the Division of Finance and laid a strong foundation on which I build in the interest of the people of Tobago. It is my first statement of this kind to this Honorable House and the people of Tobago, specifically on the budget processes and fiscal realities that Tobago currently faces. Against this backdrop, permit me to just thank the Honorable Chief Secretary and the members of the Executive Council for vesting their faith and confidence in my professional capability and capacity. And for this, I express my sincere gratitude and know that I am committed to discharge my duties and responsibilities of this office with the highest level of professionalism, fairness, transparency, and public accountability. This is my unconditional commitment to the people of Tobago. Finally, it would be thoughtless of me if I did not extend particularly a heartfelt greeting and good morning to my family, my husband, and my 3 sons, who provide me with unwavering support, understanding, and the joy we share as they continue to uplift me during this transformative season of our lives. Allow me to take this opportunity to also publicly wish my son his birthday, who celebrates a birthday today. I thank God for his blessings. I thank God for his blessings and the gift of family that sustains and inspires me every day. Deputy Presiding Officer, with those introductory remarks, I now turn to the critically important contextual issues to lay the foundation on which the remainder of this presentation will be based. Deputy Presiding Officer, the THA reprioritized budget statement for fiscal 2025 is the outcome of 2 legally interwoven budgetary processes which are anchored by a single equation. You will recall, Deputy Presiding Officer, that on June 24th, 2024, in keeping with the provisions of Section 41, 1, 2, and 3 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act 40 of 1996, that the Chief Secretary, in his capacity as Secretary of Finance, Trade and the Economy, presented the THA's budget statement together with the draft estimates of revenues and expenditures for fiscal 2025. In that presentation, Deputy Presiding Officer, this Honorable House, and by extension the wider global community, were again reminded of the fact that the current constitutional and legal prescription that informs and directs the THA's budgetary processes impairs Tobago of any real and meaningful fiscal and budgetary authority. Overwhelmingly, Deputy Presiding Officer, the THA's budget process is defined by uncertainties, especially as it relates to the parliamentary appropriations, and even more critically, the release and receipt of these releases of all the approved appropriations by the Ministry of Finance to the THA. In this regard, Deputy Presiding Officer, our 1976 Republican Constitution and the THA Act are nakedly vacant in their provisions of adequate foundations of powers to promote and protect the implementation of the strategically selected self-determination development agenda of the people of Tobago and their island government. It is this absence of our right to self-determined destiny that continues to power the lifelong struggles of us as Tobagonians. Currently, Deputy Presiding Officer, the THA is legally required to submit its draft estimates of revenues and expenditure to Cabinet on or before June 30th for its consideration in the national budget that is presented sometime around September. Now, these colonial arrangements vest the Cabinet with unfettered powers to scrutinize, approve, or disapprove the policies and associated programs and projects in the Tobago budget without reverting to the THA. Relatedly, the Cabinet also has the prerogative to finance the THA budget in whatever degree it desires without justification or consultation. Deputy Presiding Officer, there is no equivalent provision or even a mere equal opportunity for the THA to influence the budget of Trinidad or of Trinidad and Tobago after it has submitted to Cabinet and then to the Parliament in Trinidad. The simple and profound question is why the THA budget cannot be presented unaltered to the Parliament for its consideration, thereby giving it a degree of national protection from the political vagaries of the Cabinet. It is worth explaining here that the structure of representation in the National Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, combined with its politically intertwined relationship with the Cabinet, creates a dynamic where the Cabinet can exercise bad mind, spitefulness, and unreasonable control over the budget and the economic policies of the Tobago House of Assembly, which places the people of Tobago in a disadvantaged position. This situation, Deputy Presiding Officer, subjects Tobago to the traditional domination by a majority party in Trinidad, effectively reducing Tobago to a colonial-style relationship with the central government. Relatedly, the Cabinet, more precisely the Minister of Finance via the Ministry of Finance, can and he does delay the disbursement, change the legally prescribed disbursement formula, and even withholds funds without the decency of the appropriate conversations with the Chief Secretary or with myself as Secretary of Finance, Trade and the Economy, or any Secretary of Finance, Trade and the Economy. Moreover, since this administration took office of the THA, it has been noted that the PNM Cabinet is increasingly asserting its illegal right to exercise control over the finances of the THA, especially its abusive right to unilateral limit and thereby effectively change the parliamentary appropriated budget as it deems necessary. What is even more discomforting and dangerous, Deputy Presiding Officer, is that in the midst of the decades of fiscal, financial, and legislative campaign of denial against Tobago and Tobagonians, they openly seek to deceive us by calling on Tobagonians to support two grossly inadequate Tobago autonomy bills, which do not future-proof Tobago from the unfettered domination and the fiscal abuses that we have tasted and seen of central governments. Let me make it absolutely clear, Deputy Presiding Officer, that we on this side stands resolutely committed to Tobago's right to self-determination within the Twin Island Republic of Tobago and Trinidad, but certainly not the false version of self-determination that is being deceptively promoted and by the known long-standing enemy of Tobago's self-determination or its autonomy project. Deputy Presiding Officer, could you imagine, with two physical definitions of Tobago, one for administrative purposes and one for legislative jurisdiction? This is what the Tobago Judases are racing around Tobago at breakneck speed, telling us to support. What is more, a lot more of this would be said in the debate from my colleagues here today. Let me now turn to Tobago's development needs for fiscal 2025. Deputy Presiding Officer, it is no secret that Tobago has significant socio-economic development needs. In fact, the most recent national accounts data for Tobago suggests that the island has a per capita GDP of under US $4,000, less than half of the national figure of approximately US $14,000 as of 2023. The relatively low GDP in Tobago can be attributed primarily to the historical underfunding of the island's development budget. Indeed, if we look at the public expenditure data over the period 2000 to 2024, it reveals that the shortfalls in terms of recurrent allocations to the THA average about 27%. And by contrast, in the same period, the shortfall in terms of development allocations to the THA average of a significant amount of 80%. Beyond the low level of its GDP per capita, there's limited diversification of Tobago's productive base. Data on sectorial contribution of the island's GDP show that about 95% of the island's GDP are concentrated in the services sector, comprising of the state sector, the financial sector, and the tourism sector as of 2023. With the underfunding of the development program, there's limited fiscal space to effect social and economic transformation of the Tobago economy. But what is more troubling, Deputy Presiding Officer, is that the THA inherited a huge debt overhang from the past regime, which continues to cripple our efforts to engage in a new transformative development activities. This administration inherited a liability of approximately $950 million from the previous administration. Deputy Presiding Officer, as I speak to you, there is no sight of any financially practical option to completely liquidate this huge inherited liability in any efficient and sustainable manner from the minuscule and declining development allocations that we have been receiving. Now, what is clear, Deputy Presiding Officer, is that our predecessors, in the most irresponsible manner, in the face of receiving and accessing bond financing of $165 million, ran up huge liabilities without any clear plans to liquidate them. How reckless can one be? And you know what? Much of these liabilities were incurred for electioneering purposes in a desperate attempt to buy votes, mere days before the last THA elections. And might I say, they still lost. Interestingly, the individual who presided over this messy fiasco is out there asking questions even about me, when he himself has a lot of serious questions to answer. That being said, Deputy Presiding Officer, Tobago's developmental needs for fiscal 2025 were carefully packaged in the budget statement presided by our dear Honorable Chief Secretary last June. And they were all aimed at unlocking Tobago's development potential, which equates to laying the foundation for the transformative development of Tobago as the greatest little island on the planet. Deputy Presiding Officer, as you may recall, the critical developmental priorities for Tobago as identified in the budget statement for 2025 include some of the following. Strengthening of the constitutional and legislative foundational governance relationship between the THA and the central government. Digitization of the THA. Business development, economic development, and diversification. Development of the agriculture and agro-processing sectors. Development of a well-curated and integrated tourism sector and the exploitation of the orange economy with an elevated focus on improvement of the tourism infrastructure, product enhancement, we look at airlift, and human resource development and research capacity. The development of education and human capital designed to ensure the provision of quality education for our population. Development of health and social safety net support systems to enhance the reliability, predictability, and sustainability of our citizenry. The expansion of housing options and housing quality through the provision of affordable housing solutions to low and middle income residents of Tobago. Creating and nourishing the socio-economic and institutionally enabling environment for youth development through some development projects and programs to support the sporting sector and our youth. Sustainable development of Tobago's natural resources for the promotion of Tobago as the greatest little island on the planet, with the creation of a new unit under the Office of the Chief Secretary. Deputy Presiding Officer, Tobago's developmental needs are huge and requires urgent and focused attention. It requires that the central government needs to be sensitive to the needs of Tobago, and one that sees any investment in Tobago's development is an investment in the national development and diversification. It requires a central government that would not mortgage Tobago's development for petty party gutter politics. Deputy Presiding Officer, allow me to now examine the budgetary constraints for fiscal 2025. Deputy Presiding Officer, there exists a significantly huge gap between Tobago's urgent socio-economic development needs and the allocations that we receive for fiscal 2025. You will recall earlier this year that the Chief Secretary and Secretary of Finance, the Honorable Farley Chavez Augustine, requested a total of $3.956 billion, comprising of $2.819 billion for recurrent expenditure, about $1 billion for development expenditures, $91.9 million for the unemployment relief program, and 43.4% for CPEP. But disappointingly, Deputy Presiding Officer, the Minister of Finance in his recent 2025 budget statement only allocated $2.608 billion to the THA, and this is disaggregated as follows. $2.376 billion for recurrent expenditures, $205 million for capital or development expenditures, $18 million for the unemployment relief program, and $9.2 million for CPEP. Deputy Presiding Officer, although the overall budgetary allocation to the THA represents about 4.37% of the national budget and falls within the DRC within the 4.03 and 6.9 range as stipulated by the DRC, this share of resources is unreasonable and insufficient to significantly transform Tobago's economy. At the time of the DRC ruling, sir, in 2000, the population of Tobago was roughly 4.03% of the national population. But if one looks at the demographic data of Trinidad and Tobago today, you would see that this is no longer the case. In fact, Tobago's population as a share of the national population has grown continuously from about 4.03% in 2000 to about 5.1% as of 2022. In keeping with the core principles of the recommendations of the DRC, the THA's share of the national budget should be no less than 5.1%. And it is on this basis, Deputy Presiding Officer, that the THA requested a mere 5.8% of the national budget for fiscal 2025. Deputy Presiding Officer, this administration have made several representations for Tobago to both the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance to be allocated a fair and reasonable share of the 5.8% of the national budget, but was insensitively ignored, and Tobago was again denied because the Minister of Finance said if he has to give Tobago their fair share, Trinidad will receive a lesser share. So what we are left with, Deputy Presiding Officer, is an unfettered and an unfair fiscal decision of the central government to give 5.1% of the country's population only 4.37% of the national budget and give the remaining 95.63% of the budget to the 94.6% of the population in Trinidad. The impact of this denial is that Tobago was underfunded by about $885 million for fiscal 2025. Deputy Presiding Officer, the allocation of $2.376 billion to the THA for recurrent expenditure for fiscal 2025 is disaggregated as follows. We received an allocation of $723 million or 30% for personal expenditure, 713.6 or 30% for goods and services, 914.3 million or 39% for the current transfers and subsidies, and 24.9 or 1% for minor equipment purchases. The shortfall in recurrent allocations to the Assembly is about $441.2 million or 15.7%. This shortfall in recurrent allocation means that there's limited fiscal space to even restrict recurrent expenditure and transfer monies to augment our development program. It also means that we cannot liquidate the huge inherited liabilities in the short term. Deputy Presiding Officer, although the shortfall in recurrent allocations to the THA is significant with regard to development program allocations, the impact of the underfunding is more severe and concerning to us. Deputy Presiding Officer, the development program allocation, as we know, for fiscal 2025 is $205 million, or approximately 21.1% less than the $260 million allocated to the THA in fiscal 2024, and 49% less than the $400 million allocated in fiscal 2022. What this actually means is that between 2022 and 2024, the central government cut the development budget allocation to the THA by half. And this is clearly an organized P&M campaign to defund Tobago's socio-economic development program and the growth of Tobago's sectors. Deputy Presiding Officer, the overall allocation of $205 million for development program to the Tobago House of Assembly for fiscal 2025 is disaggregated as follows. $300,000 for pre-investment, $500,000 for the productive sectors, $74.3 million is allocated for economic infrastructure, $100.4 million for social infrastructure, and $29.6 million for the multi-sectorial and other services sector. The overall shortfall in development program allocations to the THA for fiscal 2025 is a whopping $797 million, or 79.5%. Deputy Presiding Officer, let me demonstrate to you now the significant negative impacts on the development program the development work program of the Tobago House of Assembly for fiscal 2025. In fiscal 2024, it cost the Tobago House of Assembly $31.8 million to fund CPEP. We were only allocated $9.2 million. Likewise, for fiscal 2024, it cost the Tobago House of Assembly $78.4 million to fund the URP program, and only $18 million was allocated in fiscal 2025. Also, it cost $3.5 million to fund the financial assistance program to our university students of Tobago but only $500,000 was allocated in fiscal 2025. Additionally, it cost $43 million to fund the school feeding program that feeds our children of Tobago in the public school system, but only $26.5 million was allocated in fiscal 2025. Moreover, we requested $25 million to fund the loan guarantee program that will assist businesses to access loan finances in order to enhance and scale up their operations. And that is not in the THA, it's in the commercial bank. We are just standing collateral for these businesses. We asked for $25 million. The central government only allocated $5 million, which can only guarantee probably 1 or 2 businesses in Tobago. Additionally, we requested $613 million to fund the Tobago Regional Health Authority in fiscal 2025, and this is the authority that manages 2 major hospitals in Tobago as well as the health facilities, but we were only allocated $567 million, a funding gap of $45 million. Also, we requested $15 million to start the reconstruction of the Scarborough Secondary School, and we were only allocated $500,000. Imagine, the THA also requested the sum of $25.3 million to promote and market Tobago as a tourism destination, and was allocated a measly $1 million under the development program. Deputy Presiding Officer, what is clear is that with these meager allocations to the THA, it is very unlikely that there will be significant structural shift in the Tobago economy. It is quite unfortunate that the central government seems not to understand that, as I said, an investment in Tobago's development is an investment in national development and the much-needed economic diversification, which has been an elusive national objective. This administration understands the power of consistency, and we will continue to take small steps towards making Tobago the greatest little island on the planet. Deputy Presiding Officer, permit me now to turn to our reprioritization framework for the priority projects and programs for fiscal 2025. On account of the huge shortfall in the parliamentary appropriations to the THA, we were again forced to devise creative strategies to execute our development mandate to Tobagonians. In this regard, the Chief Secretary constituted and presided over a 2-day retreat, day 1, which was exclusively for secretaries and assistant secretaries, and day 2 for the administrative arm of the THA, which included the administrators and the technocrats across the division to join the conversation and the contributions towards our priorities. Deputy Presiding Officer, the core activities and exercises of the retreat aim primarily to identify the critical projects that would significantly improve the standard of living and well-being of Tobago. We strive for balanced development by ensuring the best geographical spread of our projects and programs. We deployed the Strategic Selectivity Institutional Framework, which is a globally recognized methodology to inform the selection of our development program priorities, and it involves prioritizing our development policies, objectives, initiatives, and resource allocations to achieve the most impactful and sustainable outcomes for Tobago. This approach requires a deep and intimate understanding of Tobago's unique context, including its economic conditions, social needs, political and legislative landscapes, and its environmental factors. This model focuses on the high priority areas where programs and projects are likely to impact a wider cross-section of positive transformation and change. Some of the criteria that we use to assess our projects were economic and social impact, the cost effectiveness of our projects and programs, feasibility, sustainability, risk, and social impact. Deputy Presiding Officer, the fiscal policy decisions for 2025 emanating from the reprioritization of the budget streamlining exercise is as follows. We are going to project our expenditure for recurrent at $2.08 billion, a reasoned and calculated development program expenditure of $380 million. We will shift funding to fund the URP at a total cost of $78 million, And similarly, for CPEP, we will fund it at a projected cost of $32 million. We also intend to provision for a contingency reserve in the event of urgent and unforeseen expenditure of $117 million. Deputy Presiding Officer, as we commemorate 44 years of the THA's existence, we do so with pride and purpose. I'm pleased to announce the 44 in 44 initiative, a reprioritization of our development program and some of our recurrent objectives that embodies our commitment to transformational governance and that touches all the corners of the island of Tobago. These 44 projects, diverse in scope and ambition, are testaments to our unwavering dedication to improving the lives of every Tobagonian. The initiatives are not just words and numbers on a page, but they represent the steadfast commitment of this administration to addressing the island's critical infrastructural needs, improving the public service delivery, and creating an ecosystem for our businesses to thrive and for our economy to grow, develop, and transform. Permit me now, Deputy Presiding Officer, to list some of our key reprioritized projects, initiatives, and their estimated costs. Under the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment, and Sustainable Development, we intend to roll out a mega farming project across several locations in Tobago and a shade house project in Friendship at a total estimated cost of $13.5 million. We also intend to construct a food hub in Mason Hall at a cost of $16 million. We intend to reconfigure the Louisdor processing facility to an agro-processing facility at an estimated cost of $5 million. We intend to advance the Agriculture Access Road Program at a cost of $15 million. We will construct the Veterinary Diagnostic Lab at Belmont Farm Road at a estimated cost of $10 million and operationalize the Tobago Agri-Business Research Institute at an estimated cost of $3.5 million. Under the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities, and Transportation, the priority projects include the upgrade of the Store Bay Beach facility to create a new flagship attraction. Phase 1 would come at a cost in this fiscal of estimated $10 million. The restoration of the historical value of the Fort King George Lighthouse project, we will complete that project at a cost of $2 million. The Division of Tourism will continue the Scarborough Beautification Project aimed at uplifting our capital with a Scarborough Walk of Fame, beautiful landscaping and seawall enhancement, beautification and branding of Tobago at a cost of estimated $2 million. And another priority is the Pigeon Point Infrastructure Upgrade Project, which includes the restoration of the Swallows beachfront. We'll put some facilities at the No Man's Land and do some rehabilitative works at that shopping plaza near the Pigeon Point Gate entrance. And that would come at a cost of only $1 million because we'll be using our internal resources under the Unemployment Relief Program and other developmental workers within the Assembly. Under the Division of Education, Research and Technology, the division will do a revision of its financial assistance program to ensure greater alignment and uptake between the offerings of the financial assistance and the island's labor needs. And we'll focus on the educational interests and pursuit in public sector studies, such as public sector financial management, logistics, supply chain management, procurement, and also tourism, areas in the field of tourism. The Division of Education will also advance the implementation of the Community Impact Program that focuses on literacy, numeracy, student discipline, parental involvement, and teacher efficacy at a cost of only $600,000. The Division of Education will also ensure the construction of a Corland Early Childhood Center, childhood care and educational facility at a cost of approximately $8 million. Some of the critical projects under the Division of Community Development, Youth Development, and Sport are the construction works of the Charlottesville Multi-Purpose multi-purpose center and pavilion at a cost of $12.1 million. The completion of the Goodwood Recreation Ground Pavilion at a cost of $5.2 million. Phase 2 construction works of the Corland Beach Sport Arena at a cost of $9.7 million. Refurbishment and upgrade works of the Shore Park hard courts at an estimated cost of $10.3 million. Preparatory and development works of the Culloden playing field at a cost of $2 million. And we will roll out the Youth Residential Learning and Training Program at a cost of $1 million. Under the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development for fiscal 2025, we will ensure that we execute the Southwest Tobago Drainage Upgrade Program at an estimated cost. 5 minutes, okay. Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. The Drainage Upgrade Program of estimated at $12.6 million. The Friendship Connector Road is a priority project for us at a cost of $32 million in this fiscal. The Bad Rock Roadway Alignment and Improvement Project at an estimated cost of $15 million. The implementation of the Community Restoration Program at a cost of $15 million. And the Levy Fix This Infrastructure Development Program at a cost of $12.5 million. Under the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, the priorities are the acquisition of an MRI scanner and CT scanner at a cost of $10 million. The establishment and operationalization of the Tobago Cardiac Care Program at a cost of $4.4 million. The acquisition of 8 new ambulances at a cost of $9.6 million to bring our total new fleet to 12 ambulances. Establishment of the Baby Box Initiative at a cost of $1.8 million. The restoration of the public health facility at Signal Hill at a cost of $7.2 million, and the digitization of our social protection services and grants at a cost of $3.5 million. Under Division of Settlement, Public Utilities and Urban Development, we have the improvement of the Corland wastewater treatment and lift system at an estimated cost of $4 million, the construction of 2- and 3-bedroom low-cost houses at a cost of $4.2 million. The Rise Land Development Project, using a PPP arrangement, the development of 37 parcels of land at the Castara Housing Development at an estimated cost of $1 million, and also development of land, 50 parcels of land in the Adelphi Estate at a cost of $1 million. Under the Office of the Chief Secretary, they will execute the implementation of the Public Officer Subsidized Housing Program at a cost of $10 million. We will also advance a Tobago Autonomy Project, which involves preparing and sensitizing and educating the people of Tobago for Tobago's economy. That is also a priority project under the Office of the Chief Secretary. The third project under the Office of the Chief Secretary is the Tobago Online Digitization Project, estimated at $2 million in fiscal 2025. Under the Division of Finance, we will support entrepreneurs with grant funding in sectors of agriculture, fishing, and tourism at a cost of $2 million, provide specialized loan facilities for these same sectors at a cost of $3 million, will establish the Loan Guarantee Program to support Tobago's SMEs at a cost of $25 million, and finally, the upgrade and refurbishment of this very same building, the Assembly Legislature building, at a cost of $1.3 million. In addition to these 44 projects, we are remain committed to successfully complete these ongoing initiatives. This administration will actively pursue a range of ongoing projects aimed at fostering sustainable development and enhancing the quality of life for our residents. In the tourism sector, efforts are being made to expand and diversify attractions, positioning the island as a premier destination for ecotourism and cultural experiences. Simultaneously, time is up. I thank you very much for the contribution to this motion. I beg to move.
Honorable members, the question proposed is, whereas the Tobago House of Assembly met its legal obligation in accordance with Section 41 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act 40 of 1996 of approving and submitting draft estimates of revenue and expenditure for fiscal 2025 to the Cabinet before June 30th, 2024. And whereas the allocation to the Tobago House of Assembly emanating from the national budget is 2.608 billion, or 66% of the request of the THA for fiscal 2025, thereby significantly restricting the fiscal space of the THA. And whereas central government disappointingly continues to allocate approximately 4.3% of the national budget to the THA, which is at the lower end of the DRC recommendation of between 4.03 to 6.9%, and which is exceptionally insignificant to fund the proposed programs, projects, and activities of the THA for fiscal 2025, and which were designed to stimulate Tobago's socio-economic transformation. And whereas the island's socio-economic development is even further hampered by the continuing practice of the Minister of Finance to unilaterally withhold funds allocated to the THA by Parliament, and often sending such funds outside of the arrangement as prescribed in the Act 40 of 1996. And whereas this House in September unanimously approved a motion by the Honorable Chief Secretary for the Minister of Finance to allocate to the THA no less than 5.8% of the national budget to meet Tobago's urgent development priorities and address historical underfunding of the THA. And whereas the executive, technical, and administrative heads of the Tobago House of Assembly consequently met and engaged in a robust budget reprioritization exercise, be it resolved that this House accepts the policy measures and associated programs and projects emanating from the budget reprioritization exercises which are engineered to advance the socio-economic development of Tobago, notwithstanding prevailing fiscal constraints facing the THA in fiscal 2025. And be it further resolved that this House calls on the Minister of Finance to allocate funds to the THA in keeping with the approved parliamentary appropriations and consistent with the prescriptions of the THA Act 40 of 1996. Member for Darrell Spring, Wim, you may join the debate.
Thank you so much, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. Fellow Tobagonians, I want you all to imagine this. Imagine a man who, day after day, passionately begged for a job. He convinced everyone, yes, he was the right person for the role, promising energy, innovation, and results. Eventually, he did get the opportunity to which he sought. But once hired, instead of rolling up his sleeves and delivering on his promises, he came to work each day with excuses. He claimed he couldn't perform because the tools weren't right, the conditions weren't perfect, or others were just holding him back. He spent his time complaining rather than finding solutions, blaming others rather than taking responsibility, and lamenting rather than leading the way. Does that sound familiar, brothers and sisters? As the months passed, it became clear nothing was getting done. Projects stalled, the workplace suffered, the layman hungry and suffering, and the very people who depended on him were left disappointed and frustrated. Yet, when the term of his contract came to an end, this same man stepped forward. You could imagine that, asking for a renewal. The question then arises, does someone who squandered the opportunity that they were entrusted with, who chose excuses over action, truly deserve another chance? And this is the question that Tobagonians are faced with at this time. Because if you were to just listen to that presentation from someone who's entrusted with managing the financial resources of Tobago, then what you would have gotten is an office holder who came here littered with a myriad of excuses after excuses, spent half an hour of her time, rather than telling Tobago how you're going to treat with their problems, presenting excuses as to why you can't. And that is what we got. This is a reprioritization exercise. And it means, therefore, what you are charged with is coming to Tobagonians, letting them know this is what we have, and this is how we plan to use what we have. We're going to maximize it in such a way to the benefit of all Tobagonians. And disappointedly, we heard little to nothing about reprioritization. And therefore, Deputy Presiding Officer, I rise to respond to this budget with a heavy heart. Not just as a representative of the people, but as a witness to the many ways this administration has failed the hard-working Tobagonians who trusted them with leadership. You see, we are approaching the season of Christmas. And Christmas, as you know, is traditionally a time of hope, a time of joy, and an abundance for our people. Yet, under this administration, led by the member from Palliative Speyside, Tobagonians are bracing, and it is true, for a bleak and uncertain holiday season. One marked not by celebration, but by frustration, unfulfilled promises, and a lack of meaningful progress. Instead of progress, Tobago is experiencing stagnation. Instead of growth, Tobago is experiencing regression. And instead of integrity, we are seeing decisions that raise serious questions about accountability, transparency, and corruption. Tobago's hope has been replaced by disappointment, its potential stifled by mismanagement, poor planning, and broken promises. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, they say to know where you are going, you must first understand where you have been. And this process of budget reprioritization has now become a familiar ritual under this administration. On two consecutive occasions, we have been told that reprioritization would bring relief and deliver real benefits to Tobago. But when we examine the facts, when we review the results, what have we found? Nothing. Nothing but unfulfilled promises and policies that have failed to improve the lives of the people of Tobago. So, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I must ask, how can we expect anything different this time around? Because you see, isn't the definition of madness doing the same thing over and over and over again, yet expecting a different result? This third exercise, just like the others, you have seen it before. They come, they speak niceties, and deliver nothing, leaves Tobago with no real hope for change, no vision for progress, and no solutions to the issues we face. You see, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, the truth is that the economic state of Tobago is dire. Our economy under this administration is in a state of comatose, lifeless, unresponsive, and declining rapidly. And the data is there for all to see. And you don't even need data. You don't even need to be an economist to see it. Just go to the shops, the bars, the restaurants, the hotels. Just walk your community, and they would all tell you the same story. Business is at an all-time low, and things are just difficult and hard. That is the reality. Not under Mr. Robinson, not under Mr. Charles, not under Mr. London, not under Mr. Kelvin Charles has Tobago's private sector faced such economic pressure. Business owners, workers, and families are all struggling to make ends meet. Workers are living paycheck to paycheck, and many can't even survive a paycheck because their incomes are shrinking while the cost of living is in fact rising. Salaries under this administration are consistently late. Assistance programs are harder to access. And while the administration may boast about increasing food card values, fewer families are being assisted. So what is the point? What is the point of raising the value of the food card if fewer people can benefit from it? And don't talk about tourism, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. This sector that should be the lifeblood of our island. Yes, it should be the oil and gas that fuels Tobago's economic vitality. International arrivals have plummeted. That's a fact. Leaving hotels, tour guides, and small businesses to suffer immensely. Every day I speak to the tourism people, you know. And when I speak to them, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, they tell me that this is the worst period they have ever experienced. The worst. You can't even get some USA. Long time you could have found a... Yes, deal with your... So, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, deal with the unruly people now.
Members,
This is the behavior.
members,
It's a fish market.
members, please, I understand the exuberance, control yourself. Member for Darrell Spring, Wim, tapping the table is allowed in the house. When you are speaking, the councillor taps at the table at times.
Presiding Officer, the standing order said a member must present in silence. So is it that now we are saying we can all have a good time?
Member for Darrell Spring, Wim, I do not deal with hypocrisy. Rapping on the table is allowed in the house. Wow. Continue with your presentation, please.
I hope I'm getting injury time. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, the point I'm making is that a long time you could have gone to people who are in the business, tour operators. You could have called, you could have messaged a tour operator and tell them you owe some US. You can't do that anymore because they're not getting the foreign exchange, the tourists not coming. You're not getting, you can't even get that.
Members, please control your behavior and allow the member to finish his contribution.
You see, disorderly and disobedient people, they just can't change the way, and this is what is causing Tobago to be in this state of chaos and confusion. It is because these people are indisciplined and they cannot follow rules. And even inside here, Tobagonians are seeing that they're not even going to follow the rules of the house. And therefore, what is this administration's response to this crisis? What is their response? And they say they don't want me to talk about tourism because this is the sector to which any serious administration that is talking about building Tobago should really be focused. And they are failing and failing miserably. It is there. Imagine a chief secretary, a secretary, the chief administrator, and all the people go to ITB, go to WTM, and come back empty-handed. Not one thing, not one accomplishment. Barbados, new flight. Grenada, new flight. St. Lucia, accommodation. And Tobago, nothing. Fail, fail, fail. A bunch of failures, and all this should be ashamed. What is this administration's response to the crisis? No plan, no vision, just talk, 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 talk. We're fed up at the talk. Tobagonians are fed up because talk can't put bread on table. And while all they get all the big fat paychecks, Tobagonians are left to suffer. And that is what all they are putting on the people of Tobago, and that is what Tobagonians are waiting to do, waiting to deal with you all for your failures, failed administration. Where is the strategy to increase arrivals, improve marketing? Since 2022, we were promised a strategic plan, and somebody was waiting on technical people to come. And up to now, we can't get the technical people to come, so we can't have a plan for tourism. Fail, fail, fail. A bunch of failures. Right? You can't even find, imagine, you are big secretary, and up to this point, from the time Louis Lewis left the Tourism Agency Limited, you can't even find a CEO, not even the appointment of a CEO. You have failed. You don't deserve a job. You don't even deserve a paycheck. Betrayal of the people of Tobago. Madam, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, they have betrayed Tobagonians. We saw it with AudioGate. First betrayal, and it has gone down a road of continuous betrayal. The farmers betrayed. First opportunity to put money in farmers' pocket, you take it and give it to a contractor, a company in Trinidad called Novo, when you should have been washing money in Tobagonians' hand. All they don't like Tobagonians to get money or what? Failures. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officers, reflect on the state of affairs in Tobago. We must remind ourselves how we got here. The betrayal of Tobago's trust began with this administration when they made the calculated decision, one, to fire people and send them home, just like that, and then to blacklist Tobago-based contractors in favor of their friends and financiers in Trinidad. Contracts that could have been provided, that would have provided meaningful work for Tobagonians, were instead handed to contractors from outside of Tobago under the guise of emergency. You remember that? Claims that local contractors lacked the capacity and didn't have the finances. You remember that? That is what we were told. Yet here we are 3 years later. And what has been achieved, and I know why the member for Pallitive Speyside is hot-blooded today, because what he has is a legacy of failure. And you come here hot-blooded today because you can't report of any significant achievement that has drastically transformed the lives of Tobagonians. You have failed. And of all those contracts awarded, just to go back to those contracts, I challenge this Chief Secretary to produce to me any contract produced under his administration, over $20 million, that has gone to a Tobago-bred-born contractor. None. I hear talking about something up in Lamy Road. That man is from Trinidad. Check your data, check your facts. Everything has gone out of Tobago. And that is why you all have killed the economy in Tobago, and we're catching the skin to recover. Everything went outside. And the latest scandal is this big, fat $186 million that you all have just gifted away with no shame, no claim, no fame, and no care for the Tobagonians. Imagine competent Tobagonians with the ability, have the funding, have the technical capacity, bypass, and you take that and give that contract to a man who cannot even complete a $25 million contract. That is what you are doing to Tobago and Tobagonians. That is your legacy. And up to this day, not a squeak, not a man back, not a man explain to Tobagonians. How is it that a man who cannot complete a $25 million contract under design bill finance could come back and get a contract for an even bigger sum and you have your Secretary of Finance, who was chief accountant at that time, sitting down and administrating over that kind of evil.
Point of order, Deputy Presiding Officer, I would like to correct, and I would like him to correct, because I did not preside over anything. I was part of an evaluation committee. I did not preside. There's a chairman of an evaluation committee. I did not preside and administrate over anything.
Please withdraw the statement.
I'm not going to withdraw, I'm going to reframe. She was she sat on the committee that presided
Member, you did say that she presided. Please be seated. You did say that she presided over, so I would like you to withdraw that, and then you can continue with your correction to the statement.
Based on the correction, but the member was part of the committee that presided over this arrangement where a contractor who is on record as unable to complete a $25 million contract up at Lamy Road under the design build finance arrangement was the beneficiary of that very contract for $186 million under the same design build finance. So you can't finish a contract for 25, but you could do one for 186, and we in Tobago must sit down and accept that. That is your legacy. That is your legacy, and it must smash all in all your face. Every time you look at yourself, you must see that in the mirror. Wicked, evil, un-Tobagonians, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. And I have a question, because in the midst of all this, the Secretary of Settlements must tell us whether he met with this very contractor on March the 6th, and where did he meet with this contractor on March the 6th. Because you see, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, while we in Tobago and while Tobagonians are suffering, there are many in the dead of night, just as how they move the Isle of Tobago sign in the dead of night, there are many who are making deals, wielding and dealing, while Tobagonians are suffering. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, the process of budget reprioritization is supposed to be about maximizing our allocation to the benefit of the average Tobagonian. But the real question we must ask is this: after $7.5 billion has been spent, and with them now going to spend about $2.6 billion more, has this administration done a good job ensuring that Tobago's resources are used in the best possible way? Have they? Have they done a good job at ensuring that the monies they receive go in the hands of Tobagonians? No. When you are taking $186 million and handing it to one contractor from outside of Tobago, who have demonstrated their inability to do work here in Tobago, how can we accept that? How can any right-thinking Tobagonian accept that? I'm calling on the Chief Secretary to rescind that contract forthwith, because that could not be right. This contract needs to be reviewed, and the way it was given has to be reviewed. That cannot be right, and every right-thinking Tobagonian must stand with the minority leader on this, whether you are TPP, PDP, whatever P, and whether you are in the Executive Council, if you have a conscience, you must know that that could never be right. As a Tobagonian, you can't call yourself Tobago People Party and giving away Tobago people patrimony. That could never be right. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. So, Deputy Presiding Officer, you see, this administration, if there's one area where Tobago cannot afford to fail, and I'll do this before I wrap, it is in our health sector. See, the health sector is where you save lives, right? And unfortunately, this is a sector that is failing. This is a sector that is failing under the Secretary of Health. This is a sector where people supposed to have a lot of faith, but it appears that they have no faith in this current secretary who is leading the Division of Health. Because I want you to consider this. While this administration spends hundreds of thousands of dollars renting ambulances from, again, private, Trinidad, you understand the trend? So everything that is to spend in Tobago goes outside to the same Trinidad they're telling you to hear. They're telling you, all that Stockholm syndrome, because they're saying they are the colonizers. But yet the colonizers getting back all Tobago people money. So you're renting ambulances from the colonizers, but at the same time, you have ordered some ambulances. You know these ambulances are in the country? Do you know that, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer? And the question we all have to ask ourselves as Tobagonians, if the ambulances are in Trinidad and Tobago, why aren't they here? Why aren't they in Tobago in service to the people of Tobago so that we could send back those privately paid for, rented, leased ambulances to where they belong? And you know what's the answer based on the information I have? Somebody in the TRHA order ambulances that are not fit for purpose. So the ambulances are sitting in Trinidad trying to be retrofitted so that they can meet the proper standards. So I understand, and the information, she's free to correct me, but you buy ambulances with only one, so no side door. So you require 2 outlets, and you only have 1. And somebody who is being well paid, and a board that presided over that, continues to be paid. And there's no accountability, no systems of accountability in this administration. So the ambulances are in Trinidad. We have to wait for them to be retrofitted, so we continue to incur hundreds and hundreds of thousands until we rectify somebody's error. Right? And more than that, we heard about the incinerator. She told us that the incinerator was procured and everything. You know, to my astonishment, and I'm free to correction, but this is the information I am advised, that that incinerator that we were told that was procured at the last sitting is sitting somewhere on the port. And it is on the port because where they plan to put the incinerator, the specs cannot accommodate the incinerator. So the incinerator too big for wherever they had initially planned to put it.
Member, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. That's all I need,
time.
because the point I want Tobagonians to recognize is that under these jokers, our affairs are being mismanaged.
Member, language.
Okay, under these members, their affairs are being mismanaged. They just can't handle it. The job is just too big for them, just like the incinerator. Just can't fit. So I understand the plan is they're going to pay somebody somewhere down in the west to house the incinerator. So they're going to pay some rent just to house it because it can't be used down there. And they're going to plan to build some facility at Cove. Yeah, madness. Cove was supposed to be an eco-friendly industrial estate. So imagine biohazardous waste, fumes, toxic fumes, going up in Cove while you have berry farm, while you have this farm, while you have all kind of farm. I really hope that information is incorrect, because if that is correct, this will be the definition of mad people. And Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, so while they flounder and flop and mismanage Tobagonians' business, we in the PNM, we are getting ready to give Tobagonians hope, right? Hope. We are committed to a new vision for Tobago under the leadership of Mr. Ansel Dennis, one where our people, our Culture and Artistic Secretary of Tourism how you treat with tourism. It is about the people. It is about the culture. It is about the heritage. That is what has to be at the heart of everything we do. We have to make people feel Tobago, love Tobago, want to be Tobago. We envision a Tobago where our tourism sector is not just a pillar of the economy, but a beacon of opportunity. A Tobago that welcomes all forms of tourism, from ecotourism to cultural tourism, providing a broad spectrum of experiences that cater to every interest. Imagine a Tobago where we attract investors to build accommodations that serve both the luxury and the local, creating a tourism product that reflects our diverse people and experiences, where airlift is no longer a challenge, but an opportunity. As we build a better connectivity and make it easier for visitors to experience all that Tobago has to offer. But it's not just about attracting visitors. It's about ensuring that our own people benefit. That's most important. Tobagoans benefit in a developing Tobago. Through tourism, we will support and grow our agriculture, because once tourism is growing, agriculture will benefit. Our arts and crafts, our restaurants, our local entrepreneurs, they will benefit. We'll create an environment where Tobago's young people can thrive and feel invested in the future of the island, where our seniors are not forgotten, but celebrated and not cursed, but celebrated for their knowledge and wisdom. Together we'll create a Tobago where everyone has the chance to succeed, a Tobago that is buzzing with energy, alive with possibility, and where every Tobagonian can see the fruits of their labor in their pockets, their homes, and their communities. This is the future that the PNM is building, one where Tobago is not just a destination, but a thriving, vibrant economy that works for all of us, and we will do this together, for you, by you, and with you. I thank you.
Honorable members, this House is now suspended for lunch for 1 hour.
Get ready, Tobago. The People's House will reconvene for the 35th sitting of the 2021 to 2025 session of your Tobago House of Assembly. And this time, we're talking finance. Now, the central government allocated $2.6 billion to Tobago for the next fiscal year. This represents 4.3% of the government's total spend, a glaring deficit of 5.8%, requested by the Tobago House of Assembly to effectively meet the island's operational and developmental needs. Consequently, the executive, technical, and administrative heads of the THA underwent a budget reprioritization exercise to treat with the shortfall. The Finance Secretary, Petalan Roberts, will lay a motion seeking support for these measures. Thursday, November 28th, from 10 a.m., discussions will reignite. As usual, you can either tune in or come in. Either way, don't miss it.
You often will hear stories of young persons fresh out of university, and the first thing they will look to do is to purchase a car. And when you compare that to the investment of buying a home, it's usually later in life where having a mortgage could be seriously challenging. So what we aim to do this year is to create a change and have young people explore the possibilities of housing at a much younger age. And we also want them to do it in accordance with the UN Sustainable Development Goals and have persons build houses that would last a lifetime, make better investments among the young people. So it's simply having them get the information, getting involved with the data, and we have seen some drastic numbers as it pertains to housing on the island. We have an average of about 21 to 22 persons participating this year, a nice mix between boys and girls as well. We have about 8,000 housing applicants on the island of Tobago. And if we had to simply just give them a lot, we would not have the land space to accommodate that on the island. So we need them to explore the different types of cultures as it pertains to housing. So not just build across, but we need to explore vertical options. So we want them to see the different options and get a whole new perspective on housing and don't just see it as we live somewhere so we're comfortable. Can you live in a vehicle? So why is it so challenging to acquire loans and fundings to build houses? But in a day, you can get a car loan. So I think we want the banking institutions and places that provide funding for things like these to make it a little simpler, a little easier for us and allow us to make good, prudent financial decisions. Because do you know that for every $1 million invested in one house, it generates $2 million in the economy? It's simple maths. The pleasure is mine to invite you to join us on the 5th of December at 10 a.m. right here for what is going to be an exciting debate. I mean, it's a matter that affects each and every one of us because we live somewhere. So come in, get the information. Tobago, you don't want to miss this.
As the subject matter expert on housing development on the island, I'm here to give them one, an overview, and two, how housing impact on all the various sectors within the assembly. Housing is one of those dichotomous areas. One, it is one of the most basic needs that you have. For that reason, it tends to be invisible because you could argue that everyone is already living somewhere. You know, if you take that to its natural extension, you would feel that, okay, there's no need for anyone to build a house. But there's always need because one of the factors that will drive it is population increase. And what we have missed is that the Tobago population is growing at a faster rate than the national population. And because it's growing at a faster rate than the national population, the demand for housing is higher. There's one thing called demand and there's something called effective demand, which is everyone would exert a demand for housing, but do you have the money to pay for it? When the average house price is $1 million and the monthly salary to afford it is $23,000. What we have to do is that this gap between the need for housing and the opportunity to afford should be bridged by good public policy and how we change and adjust culture to meet the needs. From the kids, this is not something that they normally think about. And I'm hoping that at an early age, we could get them to start thinking about it, advocating about it, and acting on it. Just yesterday, when we had our office session, we said to them, tell me what salary you would want to earn, when you leave here. And one said $5,000. And immediately after I showed, she would need to save half of her salary for 6 years before she could even qualify. And that does not include building 6 years from now when everything would have gone up. Then automatically she said, you know what, I think I need to work for at least twice that amount. We discussed a number of thematics. One is alternative construction materials. Two, it is tempering people's interests. 3 is changing a culture of thinking that everyone would need 5,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet of land when there's a lot of land space in the air. So there are a whole host of opportunities that we can do to bring down the cost. I would like all of Tobago to come out, listen, tune in on the Assembly Legislature website and see this debate and support the students in their effort to bring to the fore a matter that is of public concern, and in a way that they take the reins of leadership, that they would be able to make the kind of difference in a sustainable development of Tobago.
Hey Assemblers, I'm Alan Cipriani, your presiding officer for this year's Tobago Day Youth Debate on Thursday, December 5th, 2024 at the Assembly Chamber at 1:30 p.m. Assemblers, did you know that an average of 1% of Tobagonians can afford housing without financial assistance? Come in or tune in live to our Facebook and YouTube pages on Thursday, December 5th at 1:30 p.m. as 9 secondary schools tackle the critical issue of housing on the island. Tobagonians, we've got you covered.
Get ready, Tobago. The People's House will reconvene for the 35th sitting of the 2021 to 2025 session of your Tobago House of Assembly. And this time, we're talking finance. Now, the central government allocated $2.6 billion to Tobago for the next fiscal year. This represents 4.3% of the government's total spend, a glaring deficit of 5.8%. requested by the Tobago House of Assembly to effectively meet the island's operational and developmental needs. Consequently, the executive, technical, and administrative heads of the THA underwent a budget reprioritization exercise to treat with the shortfall. The Finance Secretary, Peterlan Roberts, will lay a motion seeking support for these measures. Thursday, November 28th, from 10 a.m., discussions will reignite. As usual, you can either tune in or come in. Either way, don't miss it.